My son told me I was too old, too slow, too much of a burden. Those words weren't just harsh, they were meant to erase me. The very next week he moved into my house as if I'd already disappeared and had me committed to a nursing home without my consent. But I wasn't confused. I wasn't finished. And while he assumed I'd fade quietly into the background, I was already planning my return, a reckoning he would feel every time he opened his front door. I had raised him with hands that bled, with nights spent sleepless and hearts stretched far beyond comfort. Jason was all I had after my husband passed. I scrubbed floors until my knees ached, skipped meals to make sure he had enough, pawned my wedding ring to buy his graduation suit. I never asked for thanks. I believed love always returned in time. That Tuesday when I fainted in the kitchen, I didn't think much of it, just standing too long on an empty stomach. Jason arrived that evening with his wife Danielle, putting on an act of concern. "Mama, we just want what's best for you," he said, and Danielle nodded like she had practiced the gesture in front of a mirror. They offered to help me settle my affairs, as if I were halfway gone already. Soup, old documents, endless reminders of my fragility. All while behind my back they were orchestrating the ultimate betrayal. Consulting lawyers, whispering to neighbors, changing locks. A week later they invited me to lunch. "Just the three of us, you need a break. We'll spoil you," Jason smiled, rehearsed charm. I didn't pack a bag, didn't bring my phone charger, didn't even wear proper shoes. They dropped me at a beige-walled facility lined with plastic flowers. "Rest up," Jason said. "The nurse will help you get settled." He hugged me tight, Danielle kissed my cheek, and then, just like that, they left, never came back. The room had no photos, no books, no calendar, nothing but a bed and a dresser I didn't choose. When I asked for a phone, the nurse said I'd have to wait for visiting hours. I looked at the form she handed me. My name, his signature. Residential admission, medical consent, observation status. He had committed me. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded like in church, trying not to tremble, but I shook anyway. For 3 days I waited. On the 4th I finally got a phone and called Jason, straight to voicemail. Danielle had blocked me. That woman who once cried about her marriage struggles blocked me. I stared out the window at the courtyard of strangers, some drooling, some yelling, some staring into nothing. And I realized this wasn't how it ended, not for me. That night I asked for a notebook. I didn't write poetry. I didn't write prayers. I wrote facts, accounts, deeds, contacts, legal documents, every bit of power I still held. I wasn't dead. I wasn't delusional. I was plotting. Every frozen bank account, every erased utility bill, every forged document, he'd learn that I was still very much alive. Monica Reeves, my lawyer, hadn't heard from me in 2 years, but she never closed my file. I left a sharp, deliberate message. "Jason may have committed fraud. I am still competent. I have access. Call me." By lunch the next day she returned my call. "Are you safe?" she asked. Safe as a woman can be when her own child locks her away. Jason came that Friday, rain soaking him through. Monica marched in with a briefcase, fire in her eyes, and told the staff, "You're not keeping her here another week." Every forged document, every false claim was exposed. Emergency motions filed, capacity evaluations, elder exploitation cases, frozen accounts. I left that Wednesday, no goodbyes, no hugs, just a bag Monica packed for me. Freedom never smelled so sweet. The house Jason had moved into illegally would be ours to reclaim, but not yet. Monica filed a petition for sale of the property. Jason had no rights. Every dollar would come to me. We waited patiently, deliberately. I bought the house next door, a cozy single-story with a rose bush out front, a porch facing their kitchen window. Who's perfect? I paid in full, no mortgage. This moment was mine. The first morning I wore my best Sunday hat, sat with a cup of sweet tea and watched Jason step outside. His gym shorts, wrinkled t-shirt, exhaustion carved into his face. He froze and I just smiled. He retreated indoors. Danielle avoided eye contact, tightened curtains, parked on the opposite side. The audacity of my presence was crushing their pride, but I wasn't done. I planted roses, waved to neighbors, baked banana bread for the couple who bought my old home, and sat on the porch, enjoying the quiet dominance of patience. Tyler, my grandson, started visiting more. He saw the truth. "You're not a burden, Grandma," he whispered one evening. I smiled, feeling the weight lift. The storm of their betrayal had passed, leaving calm. And I realized revenge wasn't about noise. It wasn't about screaming. It was about watching the quiet fall on those who tried to bury you alive. Danielle didn't even glance at Jason that evening. She just got in her car and drove off like she needed to escape faster than the air around her allowed. Jason stayed on the porch for hours, silent, no music, no wine, only the hollow echo of everything he had destroyed. I considered going over, offering him a piece of what he never gave me, but I didn't. His silence wasn't mine to fix. Later that night, Tyler knocked on my door. She left, he said, didn't even look back. I let him in, made him cocoa, and watched him sit on the couch, staring at the wall while my little jazz radio played in the background. I don't get it, he eventually said. They had everything. I looked at him. No, baby, they took everything and built it on lies that never lasts. He nodded slowly. Can I stay here tonight? He asked. I blinked. Of course, anytime, and he stayed the whole weekend. We cooked together, played cards, I showed him old photos of his grandfather, told him stories Jason never bothered to share. He laughed, a real laugh, and in that moment I saw the goodness still alive inside him. Still time to choose a better path. Revenge, I realized, wasn't the full story. There was more to reclaim, a legacy, a name, a love that isn't erased by someone calling it inconvenient. That night as I tucked Tyler into the guest room, he whispered, "You're not a burden, Grandma." I smiled through the tears. I know, baby, I know that now. From my porch I watched the house next door, quiet, dim, hollow. It had been 3 weeks since Danielle left. The once bustling home had become a shell. No garden parties, no screeching wine nights, no porch lights left on. Jason's car barely moved, collecting dust like even it had surrendered. All the noise, all the showboating, now replaced by silence. Sometimes I saw him through the window, sitting on the couch in that wrinkled t-shirt, vacant eyes staring at the walls, trying to understand what he had lost. Other times, he was outside, a beer in hand, trying to make sense of how it all slipped through his fingers. He never looked at me, but he didn't need to. He felt me there, the same way I once felt the absence of his voice when I was locked away, wondering why my only son abandoned me like I was too heavy to carry. Tyler had practically moved in with me by then, splitting time between home and school. Jason barely noticed. He doesn't care anymore, Tyler whispered one night over cornbread and baked chicken. I didn't respond. Hard to pity a man who stole your dignity and buried you alive. Harder still to hate a boy you once held and sang to during thunderstorms. Love is complicated like that. Tyler thrived, eyes brighter, smiles longer, helping in the garden, asking real questions about family history, questions Jason never bothered with. That Friday we dropped off groceries at the church pantry. A deacon pulled me aside. "We heard what they did to you, Miss Dolores. We're so sorry." I smiled. "God restores what people try to ruin," I said. They nodded, eyes soft with understanding. The neighborhood watched quietly. That's the other side of revenge, it spreads silently. Jason's absence of action, his quiet defeat, rang louder than any screaming could. That weekend, Tyler and I delivered a $10,000 anonymous donation to the senior outreach program. I wanted no credit. Those who need help don't care about the giver, only the act. Then Jason came to my porch. I was baking sweet potato pie, the aroma pulling him out. He stood for a long time before knocking. I wiped my hands and stepped outside. Danielle wasn't coming back. He said nothing. I said nothing. And for the first time I saw the boy I once knew hiding behind those broken eyes. "I messed up, Mama," he admitted. His words fell like bricks. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I got scared, didn't want to lose everything." "You didn't take care of me," I said quietly. "You got rid of me." He nodded, guilt swelling. "I was wrong," he whispered, and I said, "Now I expect nothing. But Tyler is safe with me. He can stay as long as he needs. You've got some soul-searching to do and it won't happen here." I turned and went inside, letting the sweet potato pie scent fill the house. Tyler joined me minutes later. "Was that him?" he asked. I nodded. He said nothing I haven't already heard in my heart, I told him. It wasn't my job to carry Jason's guilt anymore. Jason remained on the porch alone, and I let him. Peace once reclaimed is never surrendered. Sometimes endings aren't what you expected, they're better. I never imagined raising my grandson again, living next door to the son who betrayed me. But I realized peace comes not from reconciliation but from boundaries. Tyler settled into rhythm at my house. Schoolwork, garden club, home-cooked meals. We could grow whatever we wanted because no one could uproot us again. Weeks passed, Tyler thrived, and I finally felt the full weight of freedom pressing against my chest like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Every morning I brewed coffee, watched the garden awaken, and smiled at the roses I'd planted along the fence. Bright red blooms, stubborn as my patience, growing toward the sky. Each petal a quiet reminder, I was still here, I was still me. Jason didn't leave the neighborhood. He stayed, trapped by guilt or pride, or both, but his presence no longer frightened me. I had reclaimed my space, my dignity, my life. He tried a few tentative visits, a wave here, a knock there, but I kept interactions short, polite, controlled. The past storms had taught me that some winds aren't worth letting back inside. Tyler, now confident and steady, called our home ours. He laughed more, asked questions about the family I never thought he'd care about, and even offered to help with the garden, planting tomatoes for the coming season. I was still documenting everything. My journal from the nursing home remained close by, full of dates, accounts, names, and events. It wasn't just for revenge, it was proof. Proof of my rights, proof of their lies, proof that even the quietest woman has a roar buried somewhere inside her. One morning I received a certified letter from Monica, my lawyer. Inside was the final version of my will, updated, notarized, reflecting exactly what I wanted. Jason got nothing, not a single cent. Every dollar, every asset, every home I now owned went to Tyler and to causes I cared about. Tyler's trust fund would cover his education, living expenses, and ensure he never felt abandoned again. The remainder of my estate would establish the Mayfield Legacy Grant, a program to help older women in crisis, women discarded by the children they raised. I had already made the first donation anonymously, $50,000. No thanks, no recognition. Just justice. Jason eventually discovered the will. He called Monica for a copy, expecting entitlement only to be met with truth. He reached out to me that evening, voice tight. "Mom, is this real?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes, you're cut out completely." Silence on the line then. "You did this yourself." I reminded him of the years he left me in a nursing home, erased me from my own life. He didn't respond. I let the line go dead. Tyler, meanwhile, had settled into a rhythm that mirrored the calm I had long sought. Schoolwork, gardening, laughter, curiosity, and love, all thriving in the space I reclaimed. Jason's presence faded, reduced to occasional shadows glimpsed through blinds. Danielle disappeared altogether, returning to Texas without goodbyes, leaving behind only empty rooms and faded memories. The house next door, once vibrant with parties and loud assertions of dominance, now sat quiet and hollow. Windows darkened, curtains drawn, the life within stripped of its previous pretense. Jason wandered inside, sitting with a vacant stare, occasionally venturing onto the porch with a beer in hand but never meeting my eyes. He could feel me there without seeing me, just as I had felt the absence of his care when I was confined. I realized then that true revenge doesn't roar, it whispers, it lingers, it changes the landscape of your life in ways they never see coming. It isn't the destruction of the other, it's the rebuilding of yourself. Tyler's laughter, his curiosity, his trust in me, it was louder than any of Jason's anger or Danielle's pride. The streets I walked, the gardens I tended, the meals I cooked, every small act of life reclaimed was my silent victory. One Sunday morning, as I tended roses along the fence, Tyler approached me, backpack slung low. "Grandma," he said softly, "I like it here, it's quiet, it feels real." I smiled, planting another marigold. "It is real, baby, and it's ours." We spent the day baking, then painting, Tyler learning how to mix colors just like I did. Memories of my old house, of Jason's betrayal, of Danielle's arrogance, all lingered in the background like shadows in a painting. But the foreground, bright, vibrant, alive, Tyler's presence made it so. Later that week, I was invited to speak at the community center's Elder Justice Seminar. Mostly women over 60, many of whom had been told they were burdens, that their voices didn't matter. I stood in front of the room and said the words that had sustained me. "They will call you old, they will call you a burden, they will smile while stealing the life you built. But there is power in the truth, there is power in silence, and there is power in the law if you are brave enough to use it." A few women cried. One hugged me afterward and whispered, "Thank you, you reminded me I'm not crazy." And I realized revenge was only one part of the story. Legacy was the other, making sure no one else could be erased in a room that smells of bleach and pity. Making sure our stories live long after they thought they'd buried us. Back home, Tyler helped set the table. We baked cookies, laughed, shared stories. I looked out at the garden, roses blooming, tomatoes sprouting, bees dancing between the marigolds. The house next door remained silent, a testament to consequences. Peace, I realized, isn't given, it's claimed. And once claimed, it never leaves. I had been sent to a nursing home and labeled a burden. But I returned stronger. I returned wiser. I returned with a life rebuilt, a legacy secured, a family renewed in the ways that mattered most. And I had left a burden behind, one Jason and Danielle would carry forever without a single word from me to weigh it down. By now, Tyler's presence had reshaped my home. The laughter, the chatter, the small routines we shared, they were my armor against the past. I watched him grow confident, independent, and safe. No longer the quiet boy who had watched me disappear behind nursing home walls, he was thriving in a space where love and respect weren't conditional. Every plate of baked chicken, every card game, every garden session with him was a reminder of what I had fought for. Life, dignity, and family reclaimed. Jason, on the other hand, was fading, not physically but socially, emotionally. The quiet next door was deafening. He sat in his living room, shadows creeping across his face as he realized the house he thought he controlled now felt hollow and cold. Danielle had left weeks ago, retreating to Texas without a word. The parties were gone. The loud, boastful displays vanished. Their world, once loud and ostentatious, had become a mausoleum of their own making. And I watched it all from my porch, a silent witness to the consequence of greed and arrogance. Some days I saw Jason through the window. He'd be seated, staring at the walls, vacant eyes tracking nothing but shadows. Sometimes he ventured outside, beer in hand, gaze cast downward. I didn't engage, I didn't need to. The quiet presence of someone wronged and finally free had a weight far heavier than any confrontation. It pressed down on him, visible to anyone who could read the language of loss without words. Tyler and I continued our routines. Gardening in the morning, painting in the afternoon, baking in the evenings. Life had returned to its rhythm. There was peace in the predictability, in the daily acts that reminded us we were safe, we were valued, and we were free. I began documenting everything again, not for revenge, but for history, for legacy. I filled notebooks with Tyler's growth, our interactions, our small victories. Notes on finances, legal updates, community involvement. Each page was a testament to resilience, to reclaiming what had been stolen. The Mayfield Legacy Grant was growing, and so was my purpose. Every donation we made, every woman we helped became a reminder that the fight wasn't just for me. It was for every woman told she was too old, too weak, too inconvenient. I felt their gratitude in letters, phone calls, and quiet smiles during seminars. They reminded me that justice and peace are larger than one story. They ripple outward, touching lives we may never meet. Then one morning, Tyler and I noticed the for sale sign in Jason's yard had been removed. The house was empty, lights off, curtains closed. It was the last physical echo of their arrogance, now gone. I smiled quietly, sipping jasmine tea. Some things needed no intervention, truth and consequence do their work over time. Tyler and I spent that day in the garden, planting the last of the spring flowers. He paused, wiping his brow, and asked, "Grandma, do you think they'll ever come back?" I looked at him, hands deep in soil, and said, "If they do, they'll find a fence where there wasn't one before." We celebrated small victories, Tyler improving in school, forming friendships, laughing openly again. Our home became a hub of warmth and love. Even mundane tasks, washing dishes, sweeping floors, chopping vegetables, carried the weight of freedom, each act a reclamation of autonomy. The air smelled of lemon polish, cinnamon toast, and the earthy fragrance of freshly turned soil. Each sent a reminder that life, when nurtured, blossoms even after betrayal. One afternoon I received a letter from Monica Reeves. It was the final confirmation. Jason had legally been removed from any claim to my estate. Every asset, every property, every account was secure. Tyler's trust fund was fully established, ensuring his future and schooling. I allowed myself a quiet smile, knowing the law had finally recognized what my own heart had long insisted. I was still alive, still whole, still capable. Community work remained central. I spent weekends volunteering, speaking at events, mentoring older women about legal rights and personal empowerment. Each seminar, each conversation became a form of quiet revenge, a transformation of pain into purpose. Women left feeling seen, heard, and equipped to fight back. I realized the ultimate triumph wasn't just in reclaiming what was mine, it was in preventing others from being robbed of their dignity. Evenings became sacred. Tyler and I would sit on the porch, watching bees flit between marigolds and roses. We'd talk about school, life, dreams, and family. He'd ask about the old house, and I'd smile, telling him it had found a new life with people who would respect it. He never asked about Jason or Danielle. They were shadows now, part of history, not the present. As the months passed, I noticed something remarkable. Peace, once regained, reshapes everything. Tyler's confidence grew. I felt physically lighter, emotionally stronger. The hum of normal life, the quiet laughter, the aroma of baked goods, the warmth of a clean home, was louder than the past could ever have been. The acts of love, care, and patience I had poured into my grandson and community now returned to me tenfold. I had been discarded, labelled a burden, locked away, silenced. Yet here I stood, free, respected, empowered. Jason had tried to erase me, Danielle had tried to overshadow me. But the truth, the quiet strength of my persistence was unassailable. I had endured, outlasted, and reclaimed. The ultimate revenge wasn't wealth, property, or public humiliation. It was life itself, lived fully, freely, and on my terms. And so life unfolded. The garden grew, Tyler thrived, our home remained a sanctuary, and the street, once shadowed by betrayal, glowed quietly with the stability of reclaimed peace. Every sunrise was a reminder. I was still here, unbroken, unstoppable, and finally, fully at peace. The days that followed were quiet, deliberate, filled with small joys I had almost forgotten existed. Tyler and I had established a rhythm built on love, trust, and safety. Each morning I watched him tie his sneakers, backpack slung low, ready for school, and felt a satisfaction deeper than any revenge could bring. This was living. This was reclaiming my world, piece by piece, smile by smile, moment by moment. Jason never fully returned. He lingered sometimes on his porch, a shadow of a man who had once thought he could erase me. But the fear in his eyes, the resignation in his posture, told me everything I needed to know. The humiliation he endured wasn't the point. The point was that I had survived his betrayal. That I had not just survived, it had been my chance to thrive. The house he had occupied, the life he had attempted to claim as his own, was gone. And with it, the illusion of control he had wielded over me dissolved entirely. Tyler thrived in ways Jason could never have imagined. His laughter filled the house. His questions about family history, about the lives of those who came before him, reminded me that knowledge and memory are forms of resistance. Every story I shared, every lesson taught, every meal prepared with care became a testament. Love cannot be erased. A mother's influence cannot be undone, even by betrayal. We spent weekends planting the garden together, painting, baking, and reading aloud. I had never realized how much life had been lost in silence. Silence that Jason had thought would bend me, break me, and finally bury me. But silence, once reclaimed, has its own power. It allows for reflection, strategy, and the nurturing of something far stronger than vengeance: legacy. The neighborhood, too, had shifted. Word of my return, my empowerment, and the quiet justice that had unfolded spread quietly but deliberately. People whispered, watched, and learned. They saw a woman who had been discarded, underestimated, and manipulated, and they saw her rise again, steady, unbroken, fearless. Community members began consulting me about elder rights, financial security, and family law. What had been personal pain transformed into collective empowerment. Then one morning, Tyler and I noticed movement in Jason's yard. Boxes, empty spaces, shadows where furniture once stood. Danielle had gone and Jason followed shortly after. No farewell, no explanation, just the finality of absence. The street, once noisy and chaotic, became calm. Quiet had returned, but this was not emptiness, it was reclaimed space. My space, our space. With their departure, I focused on the home I had built with Tyler, the life we had nurtured together. The Mayfield legacy grant grew steadily. Women wrote to us, thanking us for support they had desperately needed. I began mentoring younger women, teaching them the legal and personal strategies I had used. Revenge, I realized, is fleeting. Empowerment is lasting. And nothing is more lasting than teaching someone else to protect themselves, to stand tall when others try to push them down. Tyler thrived. He excelled in school, joined clubs, played sports, and learned the value of resilience firsthand. Each smile, each accomplishment, each piece of joy was a reminder that what had been stolen from me, peace, safety, dignity, had been returned in a richer form than I could have imagined. I had not just survived betrayal. I had built something stronger than fear, stronger than resentment, a home filled with love, freedom, and purpose. One evening, as we watched the sunset from the porch, Tyler leaned against me. "Grandma," he whispered, "I think this is the happiest I've ever been." I hugged him tightly. "So am I, baby. So am I." The air smelled of roses, marigolds, and the faint memory of lavender from the old house next door. Every scent carried a story, every color in the garden a testament. I realized that ultimate justice isn't measured in confrontation or punishment. It's measured in peace reclaimed, in dignity restored, in a life rebuilt stronger than before. Jason had tried to erase me, but I had not only returned, I had multiplied the impact of my existence. I had shown Tyler, the community, and even myself that a life discarded can always be rebuilt, more beautiful than ever. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I reflected on the journey. I had been called a burden, labeled old and irrelevant, and cast aside. Yet here I was, thriving, teaching, creating, laughing, and living fully. Tyler's hand in mine, the garden flourishing, the house humming with quiet joy, the community strengthened, all of it was proof that I had not only survived but had transformed betrayal into legacy. I never spoke to Jason again. He had lost interest, or perhaps he finally understood that some wounds cannot be undone by proximity. My peace, my life, my home, these were untouchable. Tyler's future was secure. My legacy was secure. And in the quiet moments, sipping tea on the porch, watching the roses bloom, I finally understood. The greatest revenge is living well. I had been buried alive by my own child's betrayal, but I had grown, I had flourished. And now anyone who witnessed my story could see that a mother's strength once awakened is unstoppable. The roses bloomed brighter each year. Tyler laughed more freely. The house was filled with warmth, kindness, and purpose, and I, Dolores Mayfield, had the final word, not in anger, not in shouts, but in life fully lived, in love fully given, in peace fully claimed. Some people wait for closure in apologies. I found closure in the sun rising over my garden, in Tyler's laughter, in the knowledge that no one could ever diminish me again. That in itself is the truest, most satisfying ending a story like mine could have. And so I sit here, still breathing, still standing, still free, proof that even after betrayal, silence, and abandonment, life can be reclaimed and joy can be reborn.